live. Welcome to the Buckeye Scoop Postgame show. I have C. Grant, I have Phil, I have myself. We just watched an absolute brutalization of Michigan State, something that we basically all called and expected. Nothing surprising. Started off with UC. C, your initial thoughts on the game. I think if there's one bugaboo right now for the team, it is the cornerback play. I know you played corner. It's a tough position. I think a lot of these guys are lacking confidence. They're getting dunked on. It's not really getting exposed because Michigan State, frankly, doesn't have the skill guys to really expose it. But what are your thoughts on the back end, which right now I guess people would call the weak link, because I don't know, when everything's kind of operating at like an A-plus level, there's got to be some weak link. So I'd love your thoughts on the cornerback play versus Michigan State today.
Well, I think it, just like you said, Kirk, it is very obvious that we need to get better on the back end. I think we're solid at the safety position. I think that we'll continue each and every week to get better at the cornerback position. One thing about playing out there on the island is you have to be disciplined and you have to have a short-term memory. You can't allow one bad play to turn into multiple bad plays. And it really takes a lot to become a cohesive unit. So although right now it looks like the black eye on our defense, I still have hope that in the coming weeks that we can tighten things up and get better.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a lot like playing tackle where you're kind of out on the edge, and if you mess up, everyone sees it. It's kind of one of the reasons why corners make so much money is because they can't. They're when you give up a touchdown, everyone says, like, if you're a defensive tackle and you get pancaked, most people don't notice it. They don't see that. Most of common fans. But when you're out at corner, man, it's a tough spot. Phil, what were your thoughts on the game script? I mean, we did the game stream live. It was a blast, the party. What were your thoughts on the initial, on the reaction? The second half we took off, but what did you think of the rest of the game after we logged off? Obviously, I know what you're feeling after the first half, but give me your thoughts on the second half.
It kind of went as expected. I think sort of flipped into cruise control for the second half. They really couldn't stop the offense. You got to see some of the younger guys get in. I honestly, I don't think there's anything from this game that would be a cause for concern. Yes, the cornerbacks had a few blips there. I was surprised that they sat Cameron Brown for that long, just because they don't have a lot of depth there. But I guess it's you're accountable for the results on the field. So I think the cornerback room will get better, and his learning experience. I don't think there's a lot to be concerned about, especially the first half. We talked about it. The pick six, but that seemed more like a miscommunication than really an error on the corners, on the wide receiver or CJ Stroud. So I think overall it was very positive, and then a little sloppy here and there, but kind of got into cruise control. That was a dominant victory. They could not stop the offense. I mean, it was, I was hoping we get the second teamers in a little bit earlier. Kyle McCord, we only got a couple passes from him. My hope was let him actually run the offense. Let's see what happens. But they get a little conservative when he comes in. I get it, but it's being respectful to the opponent. But it was a dominant victory all around.
Yeah, I think that we're to the point now where the biggest thing we're critical of is how early we pull the starters, which is kind of hilarious, and a little bit about the court. Yeah, it's a lot of people would love to have those questions, but I'm with you. I always think that we should pull the starters earlier because we score so many points, and I just think you have to develop depth. Some of these young guys are gonna have to play down the stretch. As C knows, you're only an injury away from being the guy. And we've been nicked up at receiver, running back. Basically, knock on wood, every position but the O-line and quarterback has had some issues with injuries, and I think that you got to keep getting these guys ready to go because we really have 2 games left that are big: Penn State and Michigan. That's it. Then we go to the Big Ten championship, which I'm sure we'll probably see Minnesota, and then you're on to the playoffs. But C, give me your thoughts on obviously the rush defense was outstanding. I mean, they were in the negatives for most of the game with the starters. But what do you think Ohio State needs to improve on? And it doesn't have to be defense, offensively, defensively. Like from your lens, what does Ohio State need to continue to improve on as we march towards the huge game at Penn State, which we have the bye week, then we have Iowa. What do they need to continue to improve on in your eyes?
Defensively, I just think that we need to continue to work together. I think that we're off to a great start. From previous defenses, I think we're very strong, but we cannot get complacent, especially coming off this bye week. We just really need to gear up and continue to play fast, physical brand of football. Just to hit on those corners real quick. One thing that you do have to realize, and just like you were saying, Kirk, if you get pancake and you're up on the defensive line, a lot of people aren't going to, really see that because that's the first line of defense. I was always taught by coaches that, when you're there in the secondary, your mistakes are amplified because the band's going to play. One mistake, there's no line of defense behind you. As far as offensively, I was very impressed with our offense today. C.J. Stroud, in my eyes, is the leader for the Heisman. But again, we need to continue to get better each and every week. Looking forward to getting some guys back who are injured. I think to help us out a lot. But I was impressed with Xavier, who came in and stepped in as the backup running back today since mine was out. And I think that we showed our depth on that end. Phil, like you said, when a guy like Kyle McCord gets into the game, I understand that we're trying to be respectful, but, reps and running that offense in a way that a starter would want to run it is going to be
That's
big.
what I want to see. Yeah.
Down the line. I mean, to play from any, getting hurt, the next guy's up, and you don't want to burn, when all the bullets are flying like that. So I just think that we just need to stay not be complacent, and continue to work on our craft. That was the first big road game for us too.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Phil, who are you giving your helmet stickers to this week? Obviously, some standouts. Travion was outstanding, 19 carries, 118 yards, or the touchdown. I mean, C.J. Stroud, another magnificent performance as he marches towards the Heisman Trophy. 21 for 26, 361, 6 touchdowns. That one bad pick, but that's going to happen sometimes. Just another exceptional outing. Mecca 5 for 143. Marvin 7 for 131, 3 touchdowns. Really just a yeoman's work by the entire team. But who gets your helmet stickers? Hand 3 of them out, and then I'll go to you. See the same question.
Okay.
Look, it seems like we're doing the same thing every week. I feel like you have to give CJ one of the stickers, right? 6 touchdowns, 361 yards. Give CJ a sticker. I think for the receivers, I actually wouldn't pick Igbokwe. I thought Marvin Harrison Jr. and CJ had a few amazing plays together. I mean, CJ dropped a few dimes right in there. So I would probably give one to Marvin Harrison Jr. On the defense, yeah, that's tough. I mean, it seems like Mike Hall was back to being incredibly disruptive. He was getting in there a lot. So I'd probably give it to Mike Hall, but it was nice to see some of the. I was a little surprised. I thought that they were going to go right to Dallin Hayden, as the first running back in, and Xavier Johnson, who had been playing more receiver. They actually went to him first, so that was a little surprising. It shows how much they trust him. I don't think he's your typical walk on. Like that's probably a guy that everyone on the team sees as like a scholarship player, can do it all. So that was cool to see. So I don't know if I give him a sticker, but I was happy to see that he was getting some carries and making a difference in different ways than we might have expected. Usually it's like within special teams, right?
Yeah, I agree. I thought Mike Hall gets one of my helmet stickers. I thought the tackles did a great job. Again, DeJuan gave up his first sack of the year. I thought he could have been better on the play where he gave it up, and then the very next play, he sat and used his hands and absolutely killed a guy. Knocked him off his feet with a great jam. I thought obviously the line, when you get 614 yards and average 5 yards a carry against Michigan State on the road, I think it's exceptional. But the story to me is the defensive line. We gave up 7 yards on the ground on 20 carries. So I mean, that's like, that's.
And you know what? I totally underscored your point because I didn't point out any offensive linemen. We're saying like,
we're used to it.
Yeah, like the O-line, I just like went right over the O-line, went to like the skill positions, right? And those guys. The fact that we didn't notice them should tell you everything you need to know. So Probably should throw out some Buckeye stickers there as well.
I love it. All right, same question. Give me your analysis, your 3 helmet stickers you're going to hand out to the Buckeyes after today's performance.
Like Phil was saying, I'm definitely going to go with C.J. Stroud. He gets one. Marvin Harrison Jr. gets one. And then defensively, I'm going to give one to the front 7, just like you were saying, stopping the run, being dominant. I think that, we're moving in the right direction. Another guy that I think of who could have been or who could have got a helmet sticker is also Henderson. If I'm not mistaken, he had over 100 yards rushing before halftime. And so those would be my 3 right there, Kirk.
I love that. It's just been a crazy year. We go from Mayan having a first-team All-American type of week last week to not having him available. I believe he got his knee scoped, which, again, you're in for Michigan State. You got to bye a week, get him ready for really Penn State. I mean, I think that the crazy thing about how soft the schedule is and how bad the Big Ten is, especially offensively, is like, do you play Jackson Smith and Jigba versus Iowa, or do you give him that extra full week to get ready for Penn State? I mean, personally, he's preseason number 1 receiver in the country, him or Jordan Addison, and we don't miss him. I hate to say that, but it's like,
you might be 7 points though.
Well, that's what I'm saying with Iowa. That you get to 10, and they're like, oh god, this is like the end of time. See, if you were in Ryan Day's shoes and you had your superstar wide receiver with a nagging soft tissue injury, a hamstring, which a hamstring, it's not, people don't cry tears for you when you pull your hamstring, but it's one of the worst injuries a player can have, especially a skill guy, because they always want to try to come back and they always want to try to push it and they always want to get back on the field. And, oh, hey, it looks like you're walking good. Like, can you go play today? And sure, you go out there and pull it again. And then you're back to, it's like all those hours of rehab and all that stem and laser and ice and heat and all that, it all goes out the window as soon as you pull it again. So it's like, do you shut him down until Penn State? What would you do if you were in Ryan Day's shoes? See?
Just like you were saying with those hamstring injuries, as long as you're walking and jogging, they may fool you, mentally and be like, okay, I'm okay. But as soon as you go and burst, so I think it's a touchy situation. I think that he has to have great communication with his wide out to see how he feels. I'm kind of mixed on this because, after being out for so long, I think it would be good to get in the game, maybe for a certain percentage of the game just to kind of see where you're at with it. But, the way that we're rolling right now and younger guys and other guys have stepped up, it may be best just to hold him out because I think what we don't want to see is him come back too early, re-injure it, and then we don't have him down the line. Just like you said, we still have guys on the schedule like Penn State and that team up north. So I think it's a touch and feel situation. Have great communication. Whatever Coach Ryan Day decides, I think that we'll be fine either way. But I know he wants to get back out there on the field and compete with his brothers. So just have great communication with him and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, like if I'm that kid, I'm seeing if I can be held out through Penn State because again, when you play Iowa, if you score 10, you're going to win. So it's like and again, we need him for Michigan and Penn State. That's it. So we don't need him for.
And let's be like realistic. Like this guy has everything in front of him with the NFL. Like you have to understand his personal situation too, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easy for us to say like I'd go out and play every game, but if I were him, I'd probably be like, yeah, I'm good for a little bit. I'm going to get 100% healthy. Definitely save myself for that Michigan game.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that he's a special player, and it's a terrible injury. It's not debilitating like an Achilles or an ACL, but it's something where once it happens, it just keeps happening. So, you have to shut guys down. Sometimes, like with certain guys, you have to save them from themselves because they'll go out and play against Toledo, and then they'll re-pull it, and then or they might pull it worse. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage him. I think that getting mine fixed up is huge. This bye week is coming at a really important time because we are really dinged up, across the board. Our corners are just, it's weird that, we have to nitpick at things like the cornerback play. And let's face it, those guys, they see a lot more of an aerial assault from these Big Ten teams because we're always winning. So other teams are always throwing the ball. So it's like, it's kind of like when you draft a fantasy football quarterback, and I'm like, all right, I want the best quarterback that has the worst defense, so that they're always behind. They're always throwing. So it's like our guys are seeing 50 passes a game, where other teams might see 30. So there's more opportunities to screw up. And I don't know. I just think that some of these guys, you can see it in their demeanor and their body language. They don't have the confidence. See, as a player, I'm sure there was a game or a practice or a series of plays or a series of games where, confidence got shook. I know you're alpha dog and I get it, but I've been there. I might not say it out loud, but I mean, what did you do if maybe you weren't performing to the level that you expected of yourself to try to get that? I mean, I hate the word swagger more than any word in the world, but it's like, get that swagger back, get that mentality perked back up to the level you're accustomed to.
Well, I can speak for this, especially back in 2001 when I was out there on the island. We had a game, homecoming game against Wisconsin, and I gave up a 75-yard pass for a touchdown. And I mean, the media is on you, and everybody's on you, and so I kind of isolated myself there for a moment there. Just really didn't want to press too much, but it's hard not to press when you're playing at a pressure cooker like the Ohio State. You're going to press. You can say that you're going to block everything out, but you're hearing it. You're hearing it walking across the oval. You're hearing it if you pick up the Lantern or any type of newspaper outlet. And now these guys now have social media, so it's in their face constantly. So I just think the biggest thing is getting back. Keep it simple, stupid, dumb. When you're out there at practice, almost using those practices as game situations. I never ran away from the issues. That means when we're in one-on-ones and 7-on-7s, I'm getting up against our top wideouts, and I want work. And then also asking those guys on offense, the wide receivers, hey, what do you see that I'm doing wrong? Is there something that you can help me with on that end? Going back and watching film, and then ultimately, your teammates, man, they're going to uplift you and empower you and let you know that, hey, man, you're going to be all right. So the big thing is don't press and just try to find yourself, man. Just keep it real simple, because if you don't, it can get out of hand, and before you know it, you'll be wondering, should I even be at a place like the Ohio State on scholarship? So,
true.
So I have a few questions for you guys. So as former Ohio State players, so one of the comments we're getting right now is about the DBs, going back to the question of like, why aren't guys turning and looking for the ball? And I think it was like Jeff Hafley. I remember like the media tried to explain it. I don't know if I'm correct or this is the philosophy that's used by all coaches, but it's kind of like, if you're getting beat, you're not turning to look for the ball. If you're in good position, you're turning to look for the ball. Is that correct? And like, did you see anything wrong with what the DBs were doing, or were they actually following the correct philosophy? And maybe they're getting beat, so they're not turning to look because they got to try and catch up with their man. I guess the thoughts on that, because it's a big, like a lot of Ohio State fans are always like, why don't our DBs look for the ball? And I know there's like a reason behind that. So maybe you guys obviously could explain it.
The way it was explained to me, and Phil, I think you're right. When you are getting beat, there's no time to look back. You're trying to recover and get caught up with the wide receiver. The one thing that you want to do, and that was always coached to do, is get position on the wide receiver and then turn your head and look back. Also, if you are getting beat, for the most part, wide receivers' eyes get real big when that ball is in the air, and you try to time it up to where they put their hands out and try to break their forearms if you can, to try to disrupt the pass play. But I think you're right. If you're getting beat constantly, you're going to be in recovery mode, and that's not always going to fare well for us. So I think right now is just getting good body position, and you really can't play the ball until you have that man covered up. So we just need to do a better job on that end and making sure that we're in good position.
Yeah, that's good. So other question I had for both of you. So we're coming up on the bye week. This team is pretty nicked up with like a lot of different injuries. So how do you guys how did you guys handle practice during the like? Are you, I mean, is it just shells, or are you guys doing walkthroughs? Like, or do you have a full practice each day? Like, how does that handled, and does it sort of adjust depending on the team's health? Like, what is that going to look like, you think, for this team?
See, you take that one, because I know what my answer would be, but I'd love to hear your answer as a player and if you were coaching.
Well, I think it's tough going into the bye week, especially when you're coming off of great momentum. You don't want to lose that momentum that you have. I've had coaches say, "Hey, we're gonna keep it business as usual through the week." Of course, the guys who are dinged up, you're going to use the majority of that bye week to get healthy. But for the most part, you do not want to get to a point to where you're lackluster in any type of way, shape, or form. I believe on one of the bye weeks I can remember, even when it was, uh, we tried to have an extra day of hitting for the guys who were healthy because we were on a rise and wanted to keep that edge to ourselves. But bye weeks are tricky. Bye weeks are very tricky. I was very impressed the way that we came out and won today because, when you're thinking about the bye week, Kirk and I had talked about this before. Your mind is, some of these young guys, it's their first time away from home, whether it's California, Texas, Florida, or even, somewhere within the States. So you're kind of yearning to go home, get a home cooked meal and whatnot. But to answer your question, I just think that, with the guys nicked up this year, let's focus on, making sure that we recover, get these guys back healthy, and keep pushing.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Phil. I think it completely depends upon how good's the team doing. Because I've been on teams when we caught a bye week when we were 3-3, and I was on a team, when we were undefeated, or we had the one loss to Texas in 05. So I think it totally depends on if the team's good. If the team's good, you could probably lay off the starters. I think that it's a good time to put the screws to the young guys that haven't played because, frankly, they need to scrimmage. And I think that that's always a smart thing to do is get them some good versus good reps. Scrimmage them at the end of each practice. Let the older guys go in. Throw them a bone. Just have them do some conditioning with Mick. Do some running, whatever, some light running. But I think it's important to really develop the young guys that aren't playing right now and have them go good versus good. I mean, you could have Devin Brown, in a red jersey live, scrimmage, see how he does. I just, it's a time to develop that bottom of the roster, the guys that aren't playing, maybe some of the older guys that you want to get a really good hard look at to see if they're going to make the jump into the portal after the season. See if, hey, maybe you should kind of nudge them towards the portal because the roster management has never been more important than it is now, and you've never had more options and varieties than you do right now because with the one one-time transfer where anyone can transfer in, every one of those scholarships is much more valuable because you can push kids out, you can bring in some impact kids, especially at positions like corner and tackle, and I'm sure Mark D'Antoni is watching every game possible to try and find us some more corners. Any spots where we look a little soft in the depth chart, I think that he's going to be aggressively pursuing kids, and this is part of big league football. I mean, you look at Alabama; they just kicked off against A&M, and they're starting tailbacks from Georgia Tech, and they have a tackle from Vanderbilt, and that's the new wave in college football, and we have to be aggressive at shopping for kids in the offseason. So I think some of these third and fourth year guys that haven't played or they're not in the two deep, they got to get a good hard look at them this week in the bye week, practice them hard and see if they really have a future here or if they're somebody that might need to level down and go elsewhere. Like, I mean, there's no shame in that. I mean, Max Ray went to Colorado. He took a medical red shirt, so now he's a GA at Toledo. Ryan Jacoby is playing for Pittsburgh at tackle. Again, there's no shame in that because these kids, they need to go play. I mean, hell, Joe Burrow did it and he became the number one pick in the draft. So these kids want to be NFL players. They got to get on the field. And frankly, some of them aren't quite Ohio State material. So I think this is a good week to get some good evaluations on some of these, especially the trenches, some of these O-linemen and D-linemen. You really got to see if they're up to snuff. And, when you switch out your coordinator and you switch out your O-line coach, it ain't the guy that recruited you anymore. So he has no loyalty to you. And it's going to be interesting to see what these guys end up doing from there.
Hey, I think that's a great point that you made too. Getting the too deep in the younger guys and guys who have been around 3 or 4 years. It's almost like bowl practice.
Mm-hmm.
How you go about it there. And the one thing that you did hit on again is that this has always been big business, but it is even bigger now with the portal out there and the pressure of making the playoffs. So this is a big week for everyone across the board, and just looking forward to seeing how we're going to handle it and how we're going to come off of the bye week.
Great question, Phil. You've been rapid firing them all day. So
Yeah,
what else?
no. So
What else you got in there?
Yeah, well, also just kind of touching on what you got. It's like an interesting time because I feel like if you're not really an Ohio State player, I can't imagine how hard. It's almost like a personal conflict for these players. It's like, do I want to be a special teams player and a contributor on a team that can win a national championship, or do I want to go to maybe a little bit of a lower level play, but not have that opportunity and probably not make the NFL? And I'm sure like a reason like a lot of you guys make it to Ohio State is because you're very confident in your abilities to be the best players. So they probably lean more towards like, I'm going to go play somewhere else and I'll make it wherever. But it's an interesting conflict. So one of the questions we're getting in the chat here, and it's popped up a few times, like, do we think that the DBs and mostly the DBs, not the entire secondary, are going to like mitigate our chances to go out and win a national championship, or is this something that's still fixable? There you go, Ken Dog.
I like the biceps on that pit. I like that.
Yeah.
So you take that one because you're a DB. I don't know anything about being a DB, so go ahead and take that.
I think right now it's not that big of a deal, but you have to look at the whole scale. It could be. I mean, and then we'll be pointing back to these games earlier in the season, mid-season, on some changes that we need to make. Again, going back to what I said earlier, and what if it was the D line, that's one thing. We've seen it with linebackers. That's another thing. But when that's your last line of defense,
Yeah.
and a lot of these teams that we're going to play, just like Kirk was saying, when we get up in the score, we get up on up on our opponent, they're going to throw the ball. And when we get a team at some point who is more, on our level, I do think that it could hurt us. So, it is something that we do need to take care of right now. And it's going to be tough because tough decisions are going to be made. I mean, we saw it today with Brown sitting down for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit of that is, the lack of confidence in the secondary. And I'm sure those coaches are getting the pressure too. We're talking about it. They're hearing about it too. And they're going through it each and every day. Hey, what do we need to do? Because down the road, as things get tougher, even in the playoffs, you do not want that to be our Achilles heel. So it is something that needs addressed as soon as possible.
But do you think, like, to your exact point, that this is maybe exacerbated by the fact that we're always like jumping out to a big lead on these teams, so they have to throw the ball. So it's like, it's a math. Eventually they're gonna get a few through. So it looks worse. But if we were in like a real, nail biter back and forth where it's more balanced, they're not trailing by, 35 points, it might not seem like as much of an issue.
Well, if we're getting uncomfortable and uptight in these types of games, I don't think that it's going to get any better when we're in, say a 21-14 game or 21-17. The big thing that, I don't think that we need to like over worry about it right now, but it is something that needs addressed. I mean, at any point in time, a team can decide to throw the ball. And right now, if we're talking about we're shaking on the back end, anybody else left on our schedule is talking about that. Teams from the SEC who think that they may see us down the road, that's what they're going to go after. So it's something that we can't hide. We can't hide guys back there on the back end. We're going to have to step up. And the big thing is, when you're getting those opportunities, there's one or two ways you can look at it out there at corner. Oh, please don't throw my way. Or you can be a dog and say, hey, I know they're going to throw the ball. Money time. I'm about to go get a pick. So we need more guys to step up, find that inner dog in them and say, all right, I wish you would throw it my way. I'm going to take that ball and give it back to C.J. Stroud, and you guys are going to be in trouble. So we just need to find out who's who in the back end, and we need some dogs to step up immediately.
See, was there ever a time where you had to kind of fake that bravado and confidence, like in your career, or you saw maybe with other guys that were kind of shook on the back end? Because again, some of these guys, our fans are absolutely, hang on, we got another one. We got another one. Oh my God, sit down. What are you doing? Good God. We got another one. So here comes our fourth fearless guy. He's standing. Got to rearrange all these names because of you. Jesus Christ, like, what are we doing?
We're in the kitchen cooking, man. Cooking, man. Cooking it up, baby.
What are you cooking?
Tacos and waffles.
Tacos and waffles. My God. No wonder you look how you look.
What my son asked for dinner tonight.
That's why. I mean, it's like TJ. That's why TJ is my son. So, good job, son. Where'd you go? But
I got good for you, man. I got that extra protein because I know you like extra protein in your waffles.
Well, you better get some squats in your life for that protein. You're just gonna be wasting it all. What TJ? I'm gonna get your thoughts real quick on the game since you're late per usual. I just want to know, who would you give your 3 helmet stickers to, and what do you think of the game? I mean, it was a massacre. It's amazing that Mel's making like $90 million for like the next 8 years or something insane. And they look like a program that you think would want to change their coach, but they just cashed out last year. So they're like, I mean, I know they probably can't keep the receipt on that one, but what were your thoughts on the game, TJ? It was a pretty stellar effort by the Buckeyes, but your thoughts. And I didn't see any false starts either, so I'm sure you're probably sad about that.
I felt bad for your boy Matt Carrick, man. The Perry Panther up there starting hard, man. Just when you're on the backside of the beating like that, man, sitting on the bench, like just watching the points pile up, knowing you can't do anything offensively. It's like, man, let's just wrap this thing up. Get out of here injury free. I mean, it's just Ohio State flexed their muscle and showed how good they really are. To me, I think CJ gets a chance to get one of those stickers, even though we're probably giving one to him every week just because he's got to be top 2, top 3 for the Heisman running right now. But, when you throw a pick 6, as a quarterback, how are you going to bounce back from that? And typically, like the next series or the series after that, you could have some hangover. And for him, he throws that pick 6, and at the time, it still kind of felt like Michigan State was still around it, and it was early. And I was talking to you and Phil earlier, man. 69-yard touchdown. I mean, that's a good way to bounce back right there. You got to be happy with what he was able to do with that. It shows his maturity as a quarterback. It shows that he's not afraid. He's not going to be gun shy, after you just throw a pick 6. You're on the road for the first time this year. Dial it back in and throw a 69-yarder. And we're not going to sit here and say, oh, it's a confidence booster or you get your swag back, whatever it may be. It never left. It's going to happen. It's a game of football. We all know that. I mean, it's never going to be perfect, although it was almost perfect in 2006 when I went up there. When we went up there, we beat them like 56-7, but I jumped off sides 3 times. And I graded out at 91%. If I don't jump off sides those 3 times, I'm grading out at 100, man. That's 100.
Yeah, Bulls always was a soft grader, but
So I have a question related. So you mentioned Emeka, like he had that great play after the miscommunication. So they've moved him off kick return. I think Chip had 1 return today. Like, is that a risk reward? You think it makes sense? Like, he's obviously a very important player for the team, but last year it seemed like he was ready to take one to the house, and they've kind of lessened his duties on special teams. Is that a decision you think makes sense given his importance on the team?
I think it does, and I'm a Chip fan, so I want to see more of him. I mean, I covered games when he was up there at Hoban. I watched him when he was out there at Arizona State. Like, I mean, his first year running the rock, I'm thinking that I'm looking at a running back who's going to be playing on Sundays. What he was able to do in Herm's offense. I mean, he was balling out, getting carries, I can't remember the other guy he was going back and forth with as a freshman, but he basically showed that he was the better running back. And I want to see more of him. Should it be on the kick return? I don't know. I mean, Kirk, you put that article out. He's the biggest kick returner in the country in Ohio State history. Dude is loaded back there. But if he finds that crease, you see so many guys, and I know you played a lot of that on kickoffs and stuff. You're going down there full tilt. A lot of times you're just getting like an arm on a guy, hoping to trip him up. You ain't gonna trip up, Chip. Train him. You ain't gonna trip that dude up with one arm.
No, you're absolutely right on that. And you have to stay disciplined on those kickoffs and stay in your lanes. But like you said, if you stick your arm out there, you're gonna lose your shoulder. And speaking of him, I thought with Williams out today, I honestly thought that at some point we would see him go in there and take some carries, and I was kind of excited about that. It didn't happen, but we have to find. I mean, he is a beast. We have to find somewhere for him on this roster to make home. So hopefully here in the next couple of weeks we'll get that figured out. I hope we can keep him there at the Ohio State, but this is a business, and guys want to play, especially guys as talented as he is. I mean, he's a true definition of a football player. You put him anywhere, and he can be definitely productive. So. Again, just something else on the list for the coaches to get figured out here over the next couple of weeks.
I like him because he is like the definition of bet on yourself, right? Because like he was on the right track as a running back and NFL aspirations, and he really it's like I want to play at the top level and I want to play linebacker. Like that's a guy I cheer for. Like, that guy's really betting on himself.
There it is.
Yeah, I honestly I don't want to say the word disappointment, but of all the guys that I've been surprised that hasn't found a role on the team, he's probably right at the top of the list because I thought coming in that he would be a guy that could use as a blitzer, maybe give one of our top two. It's hard when we only play two linebackers now instead of the old three. We play three safeties, but I figured he'd be more of a factor somewhere. And again, like when we had this rash of running back injuries, I'm like, well, put him in at running back, make him the number 2 running back behind Trey today. Just give him a role because again, I know you're tight with Hoban. Obviously, your son goes there, but I don't know how this kid sticks if he doesn't start contributing. I mean, he went from being a starting running back to a guy that barely plays, and I don't know what the disconnect is. And again, I'm not in on that.
He was his black stripe this year, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, because he was. I mean, he's already a veteran. He's already a guy that played and started, and
I get it.
So I mean, it's hard to have a guy that's already started games in college football and you're peeling off.
So all the transfers have to wear the black stripe. I don't know the whole story behind the black stripe, but even if you're a transfer portal cat and you started somewhere, you got to start with a black stripe.
Yeah, every new player. That's something Urban started in 12, where it was like every kid that comes into the program, if he's a transfer, if he's a freshman, he has to wear that black stripe, and it's kind of like you got to kind of earn your way onto the team, or so to speak. I mean, you're on the team, but earn your way and get the black stripe removed. And some of it is theatrics. Some of it is like, okay, let's kind of manufacture a good day for this kid. So we'll, Urban always told a story about a tight end that played. He played. I think it was Cornelius Ingram, played for the Gators, and he was kind of having a rough go at it in the spring. And Urban's like, well, here's the deal. We're going to kind of manufacture like a good shot in the arm for this kid. He was an older kid. He scored a touchdown against us in 06, but they basically formulated it where he told Charlie Strong, hey, call this coverage, this blitz, and we're going to run this route, and he'll be just wide ass open in the corner of the end zone. And it happened, and he caught it. And it was at the end of the scrimmage, and they won the scrimmage. And that's kind of how football works sometimes. I know people don't believe that, but like, if you're trying to manufacture something good like that, I mean, now the kid's still got to run the route and catch the ball, but they ran the perfect coverage against the perfect coverage beater, and and then he became like a captain and draft pick and all that. But sometimes
didn't score a touchdown against us in 06 for Florida. Everybody did. Tebow scored against us. On that
I know. Good.
I have a question for you guys. So if I don't know, like in your experience, obviously the transfer stuff has changed a lot with the portal, but if you came in as a transfer, let's say you're like a sophomore or junior, right? You're coming in for fall camp. Did they put you with the incoming freshmen? Like that was your crew. You like lived with them. You rolled with them. You did everything with them, or did they sort of like bump you up to the guys who are in your class? Because I feel like it's tough coming in as a transfer. So I just wonder how do they structure that? Like Kirk and I, we kind of, I was picking at him during our live chat today about some of the behind the scenes stuff. It's another thing that like you don't really get info on, but I would imagine it can be tough for a guy who's supposed to be a junior and then they throw you in with all like the 17-year-olds. Like this is your group.
Right? They're smart about that. I mean, once a kid has been around for a few years, like they're not going to make him go back and like be a freshman and live in the dorms and all that. He automatically gets singing, and that was kind of how it was with like for instance, Dante Whitner was in my recruiting class, and Dante graduated early, came in in January. Right after the national championship game, did 6 a.m. conditioning. So he, despite being in the same class as me, had already been separated, and he was already out of the dorms because he lived in the dorms basically like a year early because he graduated early. So he didn't have to live in the dorms when they were there. What's up?
Yeah, Maurice Claret did the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Early, and basically, he lived in Smith Tower, and then we all had to go over and live in Morrill. But he was done by the time we all got in there. He was able to get his own place. I mean.
Sure.
That's pretty cool. But see, wouldn't you feel like almost like a babysitter if you're a 21-year-old dude coming in there that you transfer and now you got to go hang out with the 18-year-olds, man. It's like, man, I ain't holding nobody's hands, wiping nobody's butt.
No, I'm with you on that. I mean, I played over 20 years ago, so it was a lot different, but I do remember Maurice coming in early. And just even as an older veteran guy, it gives you an earlier opportunity to get to know that person. So when the rest of the freshman class came in over the summer, we felt like we had already, created and built a bond with Maurice. I mean, he had been there through winter conditioning, spring ball, and so he was almost like a sophomore. Now on the flip end, the only guy I can really think of is maybe Chris Vance, who came in as a junior. Now I don't believe they made him, Coach Tress. I don't believe Coach Tress made him stay in the dorm or whatnot. But I do believe that is. I think it would be tough to transfer into a new location, and you already have stats, and at another place, and then kind of be looked at as a 17 and 18-year-old. I just think it's all about handling the individual. I mean, and those individuals who are coming into the Ohio State have to understand, what the standard is and what's going to be laid out for them. While they're in that transfer portal, maybe that's something that they talk about. Hey, when you come here, we're gonna start you off at this level, and I don't think there's anything wrong with earning your stripes. The Ohio State is it's a different type of place, and just because you can gather up stats somewhere else, when you walk through that door, nobody's handing you over their position, and nobody cares about all that. It's a whole nother world. So you just kind of get in there and get in the mix and kind of see where you fit in. And what we're seeing with guys even this year, it may be hard to find a place, So
Kirk, do you think that you should be fast tracked to the front of the line if you came in and you played a year at Arizona State?
Oh, absolutely. Just because it proves that you can play, you have played. You're not you're not a guy that's a freshman, and again, it depends on how good of a player you are too. It's kind of like, honestly, it's kind of like my boy Quinn Ewers. Like Quinn Ewers, #1 quarterback in the country, 5-star, all-world, highest-rated recruit ever, goes to Texas, and they didn't make him go sit in a dorm, even though he graduated from high school a year early. They don't treat him like a freshman; they treat him like a sophomore.
Well, Kirk, I think on that too, it goes back to Quinn isn't going to stand for that. A guy who leaves high school early to come to the Ohio State and be in that quarterback room that he was in with, Kyle McCord, CJ and the rest of the guys, he's a very confident individual. So I'm sure when he hit that portal and he talked to Texas, they knew what they were getting, and he knew what he was getting into. And going back and being a freshman again, I mean, the guy left his senior year of high school to come and get involved with college football. So different strokes for different folks. I think that's something that needs to be discussed prior to committing yourself to a new university. Hey, this is how I like to be handled. Why are you bringing me in here to be a young guy? Or are you bringing me in here to help? So it's
Hey,
kind of
don't
how
let
Bill.
Quinn fool you, man. He wanted his mama to do his laundry. That's
Here,
all it was. He couldn't do it in
Quinn?
Columbus. He
My
wanted
mom did
mama to drive up to Austin to do his laundry. He wanted some of that baked ziti from home.
Big city. I mean, Austin's not exactly right down the street from Dallas, but I mean, I just think that the deal he got and Steve Sarkisian developed him is something that turned out well. I mean, he was shredding Bama. I think they beat Bama if he stays in that game, and they absolutely destroyed Oklahoma. So we're gonna go around the country a little bit. How stunned are you guys by the dramatic fall of Oklahoma, losing 49-0? A year ago with Lincoln Riley, they were competitive. They're really good. And how do you think that it will signify, or it will, impact coaching searches going forward? Because Brent Venables is thought to be one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. And, obviously they got shelled today by Steve Sarkisian. And I really think that there is it's not me being Captain Obvious, but you look at who's getting the big new coaching jobs. It's offensive gurus, which, it's Lincoln Riley, it's Ryan Day, Jim Harbaugh's an offensive guy. These guys are trying to strike it outside of Kirby Smart, who has the best, defensive players in the country on his roster. These guys are all these big hires are offensive guys. It's like that in the NFL too. We'll start with you, C. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you think that'll impact like defensive minded, defensive coordinators, as they continue to grow and become head coaches?
Well, I do think that from being an offensive coordinator, from that standpoint, you're brought in to light that scoreboard up. Defensively, it's up to you to come up with schemes to stop the offense. I think in that Red River rivalry, Venables is not from. He doesn't know that game. And I think when you look at Lincoln Riley, a guy who was an Oklahoma guy, understood how big that game was for the guys from Texas and Oklahoma. You understand what it means to the fan base and everyone. So it may be a smoother transition versus bringing a guy out of the ACC, in his first, attempt at this. And when I tell you, man, they dropped the ball today. I mean, they got their behinds kicked bad, and I mean from start to finish. And so for D coordinators, I mean, and he's not the only guy. I mean, we've seen it at a lot of other schools too, to where their teams are not up to snuff. So I do think that this is a copycat type of business, and we're taking a look at the way things are going as far as offensive coordinators really coming in and shining. Of course, until a defensive coordinator comes and takes over a program and dominates, you're going to have a lot of these top tier schools looking for the next Lincoln Riley or someone, in that form.
TJ, what are your thoughts on that? You follow the coaching stuff.
To me, it's just kind of sad that Lincoln Riley could just, I get that you're taking the money. You want the more attractive program. But damn, man, they had them flying high, and Lincoln just kind of bailed on all those guys, man. It's almost like he pulled the drain stop on the program where, they're just building up. They're stocking up. Every year they're putting themselves in contention to be in the college football playoffs. And he just, sets his sail out west, and it really just kind of left them high and dry. To me, I guess you can kind of expect or see how a program would fall off, and players are going to be like, okay. How many of his recruits, I follow it close enough on the recruiting trail to know whether did 6, 7, 8, 9 guys, did they flip and say, I'm going to roll and go with coach out to USC? How many of those guys did he say that he even wanted to come out there? Was he looking to do something completely different? I'm with you. I think Venables is a guy that you have to go after. I like his game. I like what he does. Defensively, yeah, it might not be sexy, but just look at our own backyard here, man. Look what Jim Knowles is doing, man. Jim Knowles is kind of changing the trajectory of this team. I've seen this type of offensive production out of Ohio State before, but I haven't seen a defense, like this since 2002. Shout out my man C. Willie, you know. But I think Jim Knowles brings a credibility, and he's got these guys defensively saying, "Hey, listen, we're going to go out there and we're going to attempt to cover down on Alabama better than we did before because it wasn't very good before." So does it transition well for a defensive guy to be a head coach? I don't really know that. I think C's spot on again. The way the game is now, it's sexy and it's attractive to put up a lot of points. Put your foot down on the gas. That's what Urban did. You know, we played under Coach Tress, and I'm not sure what Coach Coop was like early in your career, C, but, I mean, Coach Tress was about winning with class. So when you got up over 30 points and they only had 7, you felt like you took your foot off the gas a little bit. You're just running power right, power left, milk the clock, get out the game, stay healthy, and move on to the next one. I mean, if I'm up by 30, I'm coming out 1st and 10, and I'm trying to throw a Hail Mary. I'm trying to go down the field on you and put up 36, you know, because that's when you in the game of football, we all know how wild it can get. You never take your foot off somebody's throat until there's triple zeros on the clock in the 4th quarter, or you will find a way to get beat and lose a game in the end.
Yep. There's no coddling your opponent. Hey, TJ, and for everyone else on here, do you think that Coach Knowles could have left Oklahoma State last year and took on a head coaching job and still got those same results? I think going from D coordinator to D coordinator is one thing, but going from defensive coordinator to head coach is another thing. I mean, look at one of our guys, Marcus Freeman. I mean, a guy who went who left Cincinnati, where he was dominant as a D coordinator. When he was at Notre Dame, did his thing as D coordinator, but it's a different pair of shoes to fill whenever you're taking that and becoming a head coach. And I do want to see how that's going to move. How that's going to go moving forward with a lot of these premier D coordinators who are going to be in position to take on head coaching roles. Can it transfer? Can it transition over into the head coaching department? We've seen it on the offensive end of things, but defensively, it's been a struggle for a lot of these guys who take on that role. And I don't know if it's because they're not calling the plays. Now, you look at a guy like Coach Ryan Day, who's an O coordinator, and now head coach and still calling his plays. I'm sure Lincoln Riley's doing a lot of the same thing. These guys don't, hand that sheet to someone else. They're the head coach and they're still the coordinators. I think, it's a lot different when you're a defensive guy and you're coming in as a head coach, learning that role, and now you're handing that play sheet to someone else to try to emulate you on how even you got that job. So.
I mean, I think he's got the personality to do it. I mean, I'll deflect over to Phil and Kirk. I mean, I think Jim Knowles has that type of capture ability when he starts talking to the dudes on his team, they all listen. And that's what a head dude has to do. You might be right. Would it be the perfect time for him? Who knows? Go win a national championship or 2 for Ohio State and see if he doesn't pull some Dino type stuff and go make that run. Go pop into Cincinnati or go get your own head coaching gig up at Michigan State. You got to credit Dino for the reemergence of Michigan State. Without a doubt, it started with Mark D'Antonio.
Yeah, Michigan State was dead in the water prior to him coming in and breathing life into that program. And I mean, even now with Coach Tucker being there, I mean, you're still going off of the standard that Coach Mark D'Antonio set for Michigan State. I mean, and he's feeling that too. I mean, Coach D'Antonio's records are sitting there in his face too, and this guy has $100 million now. So I think you're right, TJ. I mean, Coach Knowles, whenever he speaks, everyone listens. His defense is definitely listening to him and flying around. And that's the other thing, I really feel with his voice of reason will be in that secondary room before you know it. Yeah, at some point he's going to go in there and say, hey, guys, we got to fix this. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how all this shakes out.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Go ahead.
Man, you see that smoke rising? It's coming up.
Is your house on fire? We ain't got.
I'm just trying to keep the smoke detector from going off because they will show up, man.
Will they? I'm sure they will. What are you gonna say, Phil? Before we were rudely interrupted by Chef Boyardee.
No, I was gonna say, I don't think it's like a universal rule. You need an offensive mind to lead a program. I think Luke Fickell obviously comes to mind as like a defensive-minded guy that's done a great job. But it is interesting. Like with Jim Knowles, he comes in. We kind of view him as this like defensive guru, and he's obviously changed things very quickly. It is strange to me that it took him like this long to, and like he was saying, he's still a defensive coordinator. He still hasn't made it to like the top level of football as a head coach. But I don't know. I just think like a head coach, there's kind of like two tracks. They're like you're like the genius of the offense or the defense, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong because you obviously know him much more than I would as more of a fan. But the Urban Meyer philosophy, which is more like I'm the CEO, my job is to install culture and like the effort and everything with it and hire the right people rather than it's like my job to lead a certain part. So like you can be a defensive minded guy, but I think you have to have that culture and that leadership part of it. It seems like it's harder for the guys on the defensive side to get to the top. Luke Fickell is a great example, but he's still hanging there at Cincinnati, which has turned into a really good program. But it would be interesting to see more guys on the defensive side get those head coaching opportunities. But both in the NFL and in college, it seems like they're going to turn towards those offensive-minded coaches more quickly.
I just think that the way the game is skewed now, it's almost impossible to play cornerback. It's almost impossible to not give up 250 yards in the air. I mean, unless you're playing someone who's just putrid like Michigan State. But you look in the NFL, you look at college football, the game's geared toward offense. Athletic directors feel a lot of pressure to fill the stadiums. People like seeing touchdowns. Everybody who's an Ohio State fan obviously loves Ryan Day's offense as opposed to Jim Tressel's offense. Coach Tressel won a national title, running 46 a lot and getting some timely plays from Mike Janglang Jenkins and some of those guys. But the way we score it now, I mean, it just doesn't. The defense can really let their hair back because they know if they give up a score, we're probably going to put 2 more on the board, and it is what it is. So I think that the way the game is now, I think the Venables thing will be something that'll be real interesting to watch because he was deemed as like a kind of a not a savior hire, but Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma in the middle of the night, went to USC. I think that's an upgrade of a job, especially with Oklahoma going into the SEC and the USC joining the Big Ten. I think that's an A-list team coming into the Big Ten. But, if I'm an athletic director and I'm looking around at these head coaches and I'm seeing Brett Venables and, he was one of the premier defensive guys who's like a $2.5 million DC at Clemson. And all of a sudden he shows up and, man, they're dropping 49 on a defensive guru. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking for that next young offensive guy, which is why I consistently say that, Brian Hartline is going to be a very hot commodity soon. As soon as he starts calling plays, but he's a dynamic recruiter. He's an offensive wizard. His players love him. He's young. He's got the look. Because again, as dumb as it is, like the look matters. Like people want to have a certain look for their face of their franchise.
Look.
Yeah, he's like.
Why you over here stroking the Gleno Golden Eagles ego, man? He don't need to stroke anymore.
Not all the Gleno guys look good because like there's like him and Brandon Long, and then there's on one side, and then there's you and like Nick Smith on the other side of the spectrum. So it's like, they passed it on when they got to you. But
true story though. When we played Michigan State in 2005, it was I can't remember when it was, but you were in there because I know you missed the 2005 game. And when Brandon Long from Glen Oak came run into the game, Kirk's in the huddle and he's slapping on my thigh pad. Like, look, it's your boy 47 from Glen Oak. He's like, I'm about to whoop his ass.
He's terrible.
Troy hit him with the Ohio call so we could put the double team on Brandon Long, and we ran this cat out the back of the end zone.
Oh God, it was bad, man. I mean, all those other Glen Oak guys other than you weren't really that good. I had high hopes for Nick and those guys and Ryan Palmer, and I don't think any of them ever produced anything outside of you. But that being said, wrap this thing up pretty quick here. Bama and A&M is scoreless. It looks like oh my God, Bama's quarterback has 3 yards passing, Jalen Monroe. So yeah, it's not quite what the Ohio State thing is. And that's the thing I'm going to end this with is this Ohio State's best chance to win a national championship under Ryan Day? Obviously, 19, the team was loaded, didn't get it done. But I mean, it's a combination of the skill, the defensive hire and prowess of Jim Knowles, and just how average everybody else is. Like I think Georgia's probably number one in the country right now. But I think they're beatable. I think Bama's beatable. I just don't see that supernova team right now, like that LSU team from 19, or a team where I'm like, or even Alabama in 20, where I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how we're going to compete with that. I don't see that, which is why I really want to get a good look at Bama and A&M tonight, because A&M I think is they're sliding, but they're as talented as anybody in the country, but they've got 2 losses because they're just not focused. But I'll start with UC. Is this Ryan Day's best chance to win a national title this year?
I think so. I mean, it's right there in front of us. We have an explosive offense. Defense has definitely improved from seasons past. Why not us? Is the way I kind of look at it. I think there's only maybe 1 or 2 teams that are on our level that could, do anything with us. So I think that, we really have to look at this year. Every year at the Ohio State, we're looking to win a national title. So why not this year? I think you have Stroud in his second year, Henderson in his second year. You have guys up front. You have all the guys that you need at wide out, and the defense is coming along. So why not us? I do think that we're on a collision to possibly bring home another national title to the great state of Ohio.
TJ, your thoughts?
I think potentially, man. I mean, obviously, when we had the talent at wide receiver that we did over the last couple of years, you thought that we'd be in the mix. We just could not cover down on Bama. I mean, it's unfortunate, but when you put Tough Moreland on a guy that is just going to completely smoke him on every play, it doesn't take a rocket scientist as an offensive coordinator to pick out that mismatch and exploit it. And we got exploited. Now, does that fall on Tough and his inabilities of not being able to cover? Or is that on the coaching staff? Is that on Kerry Coombs? Is that why he's no longer with us? Jim Knowles, I think, is the guy that can get that figured out. One question I want to ask you, Kirk, because you just kind of touched on it, stadiums being filled up. Was that kind of was that a bad look today up in East Lansing? I know Scarlet and Gray were in the house, man, but that stadium was looking empty, man. That was not impressive.
That was not pretty.
UCLA has not been impressive. And how about Kent State? I'm going to get on my high horse here real quick, man. The Golden Flashes, they played Miami of Ohio today. They traveled maybe like 5 people down to Oxford. That's embarrassing. Kent State's one of the best teams in the MAC. You're in the state of Ohio. It's only like a 2.5-hour drive. Why are you not there? I mean, is it still COVID, or people just not want to come out, or what?
Phil, why don't you answer that? Then I'll give my opinion.
I just think the game experience has just gotten so much better at home, right? Yeah. I mean, now these days, like, you have to drop so much money, especially if you're bringing family. You double, triple the cost. You got to park. It takes forever. It's like I can sit here, watch my big screen TV. I can have other games going. I can be checking the score. It's just an easier game experience now at home, and like I think that's what you see in the NFL. But I agree with you. I mean, I'm an outlier. For me personally, like, I like to be at the game because just like that sound of the band and everything. Just there's something about that you can't really conjure up just watching on TV. But no, I think I don't think it's COVID anymore, to be honest. I mean, I live in Florida, but I think we've kind of moved past it at this point. It seems like it's more just they've created a better experience at home, and it's too expensive for like the common person to.
Plus, you can sit here and make tacos and waffles while you're doing the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Looks like I'm a Judas Priest, man, coming out with the fog machines behind me.
Oh, God.
I mean, I actually live. I live like 2 miles from Miami Central and 2.5 miles from Miami Northwestern. So I was just telling my wife, I'm like, I need to go to one of these high school games the next few weeks. I'm like, what are you talking? I'm like, this is like the best high school football. I'm right by it, and there's something about like hearing the band, being right there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like it's changed the last few years.
Where are you at in Florida, Phil?
I'm down in Miami and Miami Shores.
Bro, you got to go see our boy Bryce Bishop, man, coaching offensive line for Killian.
Is he?
Yeah.
They're gonna say go see Brandon Ennis, who's the best receiver in the country, and is at Heritage right now.
There's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, there's
Malachi Toney, the best freshman in the country. Yeah, There's a lot of ballers down there, but TJ, your questions are good. I just think that the experience stinks. I'll be honest. Like I think that Ohio State does a really poor job of the game day experience. I think it's absolutely terrible for the type of product that's on the field. The game experience is like the exact opposite. It's awful. Like if you go to like a Columbus Blue Jackets game, where the team generally isn't as good, the food's better, the atmosphere is better. The Wi-Fi, obviously, the Wi-Fi is always going to be an issue at Ohio State because there's so many people around the stadium. But I just think that, TVs are cheaper now. You get bigger TVs for dirt cheap. There's all these other Hisense, all these other brands. And, and again, like, it's just so expensive. Because, like, the thing is, like I tell people with Ohio State, when you get tickets, like, you usually, if you want good seats, you got to donate a bunch of money to get access to the seats. Then you got to pay for the seats. So it's like, you're dropping a fortune. And if you buy season tickets, there's like 3 good home games. Like this is probably the best home schedule that we've had in 20 years. This may be like the 05 year where we had Notre Dame, we got Iowa, we got, Wisconsin, we got Michigan. But then you flip that with next year, and next year the home schedule is just atrocious because you don't have the home Michigan game. You get Penn State, but I just think that it's expensive. I think it's convenient to be at home, especially the way that you can multicast, watch multiple games on like YouTube TV or on your iPad or whatever. Frankly, I enjoy being home for the games because I can be on Buckeye Scoop, I could be on our message board, I could be in the game threads, I could be podcasting with you guys. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I know that cost is obviously a huge issue. Because it's just gross how expensive sporting events are. And I took my kid to a Blue Jackets game, got him good seats, but it was every bit of, $600 to go to it's just like for a regular season hockey game, I'm like, that was fun. But like, do I want to do that more than once a year? Probably not. And, with Ohio State, you look at our schedule and we're playing Arkansas State, Toledo, these like turd teams that nobody wants to watch. And,
still
like
100,000 and know every week. You can guarantee and set your clock to that every week at Ohio State. You're going to get 100 G's in the stadium.
I don't see. That's the interesting. I don't know if we got that for Arkansas State because there was a lot of empty seats in that game. But it's, again, and we're the best, one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country. So imagine if you're Michigan State or Purdue or Indiana or some team that just isn't good. Like it's hard to get people.
It is surprising though. Michigan State didn't have a packed stadium for Ohio State.
Exactly,
like that's kind of
crazy. I'm watching that. Like, what is going on, Phil? Like, damn.
There were a lot of Buckeye fans there, but I don't know.
I think
he'll be able to tell you. See, there was probably more people at the Hoban St. V game last night than there was at the Kent State Miami of Ohio game.
Oh, I bet so. You're
better
definitely
football.
Right on that. But I think you all have made great points. Phil, I'm like you. I want to hear the band. I like that whole atmosphere, of college football, and and that you can't get at home. But with social media, like Kirk was saying, you can get on the scoop. You can check your different channels on different teams. There's just so much more that you can do in the comfort of your own home. And there's also a fortune to pay for these games, like you guys were saying. I don't know if it's COVID. I don't know if it's gas prices or what. I don't know if it's fighting at some of these events that goes on in the crowd, but it has changed. I was very surprised with Michigan State. Usually, even when Ohio State rolls in, whether the home team is supporting their home team all year or not, when Ohio State rolls in and it's one of the best teams in the country, you're coming out to see that live and living color. So there is something going on, and those fans that fill up the shoe each and every time that we have a home game, they're hardcore fans. They're there. They're not there for the food. They're not there to be entertained other than on the field and to get a live look at the Buckeyes. So a lot of good stuff that we talked about here today.
How many people come to the games just to watch Script Ohio and the greatest damn band in the land? That's real stuff.
Hey, I committed.
Universities, we're pimping other people's universities because they want to just come see our band, let alone the football team.
I promise you, when I was a junior, I went to a home game. And when the band came out and did Script Ohio, I looked at my mom and dad, and I'm like, I'm here. And my dad was like, you're not going to see this, but there's just something about it. The best damn band in the land. it was just captivating to sit up there as a recruit and just see it. Just getting that Ohio State experience. So it was good for me.
I mean, Phil, if that's what they're doing in UCLA, I mean, I'm sure you saw the pictures out there. I mean, what are they going to travel when they come and play Rutgers? Are they playing Maryland or, Michigan? I mean, what is that going to look like? I mean, are they even going to travel anybody?
I don't think money's going to solve it, and they're joining a tougher conference, so it's not like they're going to shoot up and be a top 3 Big Ten team, right?
Right. Hey, can I ask one question real quick before we get off?
I'd love it, so do it.
What are your guys' thoughts on the Big Ten right now with the East and West? I know on Twitter I've been saying like we need to reshuffle this whole thing. I know they're trying to do it, based off of area, location. But just I would like to hear your guys' thoughts. I just think that every year seems like the East is better than the West, and is it time to shake things up? Especially with USC and UCLA trying to come on board, because me personally, I think it would be better for the Big Ten Conference if we weren't so top heavy as far as the league goes on the East side of things. I wouldn't mind having Ohio State on one side and Michigan on the other side. Take those rivalries, Michigan State on one side, Penn State on the other. Wisconsin and Minnesota. What are your guys' thoughts on
that? You start, Phil.
Eventually, you're going to have to reshuffle. I mean, you've got to.
I guess
you want to have it out.
Go ahead and start, Phil.
I guess I'll turn it back to you. But like, would you be cool though playing Michigan like back to back if that happened? If they split them, like you're fine with that? Like, imagine like let's say Michigan they lose to Ohio State, but then you rematch the next week and Michigan wins, and then they get to go to the playoffs and you don't. That's the only thing about if you put it opposite sides. I personally think I agree with you, but I think if they put USC and UCLA in the West, and then I don't really care about some of the bottom teams, they could shuffle them around. I think that'll solve it. But yeah, I agree. I mean, the West hasn't won the Big Ten, right? In how long? Ever? Yeah.
Yeah.
So. And I keep thinking about the Michigan Fight song. Like, doesn't it say "Champions of the West"? Like, come on, man. They need to get over there on that West side, man. But hey, I think it's good that we got Maryland stepping up. Maryland's playing good ball. I mean, you want to have a little bit of parity inside of it, and I don't know. I mean, it's I think back to 2006, Kirk. I mean, when they wanted us to rematch Michigan in the national championship, even though that would have been 51 days after we beat them in the horseshoe, would you want to? I mean, I can see where a lot of people would say, you know what? What else is better than beating Michigan twice in a row? I mean, that's like Christmas morning,
that's
right?
True.
Well, if you just beat them, do you really want to play them again? I mean, we wanted to play somebody different. We got Florida and we got smoked 41-14. Now, if we could go back and do it all over again, I'd rather play Michigan.
Oh, well, look God, yeah.
I mean, even from this standpoint, look at the SEC.
They don't care about that. Yeah,
they don't. Yeah, they don't care, and I'm wondering how they continue to get 2 teams in a 4-team playoff. And I'm just wondering, even if that scenario happened in the Big Ten, to where we have a big dog out in the West. Let's say you move one of those guys, Penn State or Michigan, to the West, and let's say it comes down to the game. If those guys are ranked high enough in the game, is pretty good. Do we get an opportunity to maybe have 2 teams in the college football playoffs, even when they're going to go and expand here in the next couple of years? I just want to see the Big Ten brand do better because, year after year, Ohio State is on a whole nother level, and there's nobody on our level in the Big Ten consistently year in and year out. So, I just wonder, would it help us as a conference to kind of even this thing out and maybe have an opportunity to get, 1 or 2 into this playoff mix? Because we're beating each other's ass on that East side.
I feel like this is the first year in a while, though, you're starting to hear like a little bit of, could the Big Ten get 2 teams? But again, it's only Michigan and Ohio State. Everyone else, they don't care about. I guess we need more games like this 0-0 thriller. If I'm updated on ESPN between Bama
the thrilling Alabama A&M 0-0.
Yeah, A&M will be ranked number 17 next week after the 0-0. No.
Well, what's funny is like UCLA. I mean, they might hit the top 10. I mean, they're now 6-0. They beat Utah, who had Cameron Rising, same guy that we played last year. And I mean, and it's funny. You look at their attendance: 42,000 and an 88,000 seats. So they're at 47% attendance, and that's a 11 Utah and an 18 UCLA. And I just think that, in certain parts of the country, football is never going to be that important. Like in Los Angeles, like nobody cares. Like it's just like, they're not going to go to a UCLA game on a Saturday, even if they're like number one in the country. It's kind of like
team down here, like the
U.
It's rough.
The worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's like the U should stand for you want to go to the game. And everyone's like, no, I don't. I want to go to the beach. I want to go to Club Live. I want to go to Tootsie's. There's about 800 billion places that are more fun to go to than the game, especially when it's expensive. It's in the middle of nowhere. They play in in an NFL stadium, which just looks terrible. I mean, they got to build what the U needs to do. Honestly, is build a stadium that's like Minnesota.
Well,
Minnesota.
I
saw the renderings.
The renderings. Yeah, it's sick. You could like pull your yacht up to the stadium. Like they have an entrance for the boats to come in.
That'll be sick.
I don't know if it'll happen, but
yeah, that'll be sick when the one guy who likes the U, when they go 2-10 every year, pulls his yacht up, and then you've got 700.
When Neville Shapiro pulls up with that turnover chain on,
he pulls up in his orange jumpsuit.
Sell it.
A funny story about Nevin Shapiro. I actually went to his house my rookie year in the NFL with Miami, and I was like, it was Aiken Odell's birthday, and Steve probably remembers Aiken Odell. He played at Purdue, and we all had invitations to go to this birthday party. I was like, okay, so like we all went out like as an O-line, went to dinner. Then we showed up to this party, and it was like, this was like the most like any given Sunday party I've ever seen. I've ever been to in my life. There's like girls that like have body paint of Aiken's like Purdue jersey, his Dolphins jersey, like. This is like these naked models walking around with body paint on, so that was cool. And then they had like this clear platform over the pool, and this guy had so much Miami Hurricane memorabilia that I was like, "Who is this?" He had like a Sean Taylor helmet with the rainbow visor and like jerseys like framed everywhere. And I mean, this house, it was like Tony Montana's house basically. And I'm like, "What the hell is this? Where are we right now?" Like so. I mean, it was cool, but it was weird because then, like in 2011, like the House of Cards fell down, and all of a sudden they're just like, yeah, this guy was selling like old groceries. Like he would like it was actually kind of an amazing scheme they came up with. It was like, well, in some countries, they throw a week out when it's 6 weeks old or 4 weeks old, but here we do it after 1 week. So he like had like this thing where he would sell stuff that wasn't up to American standards, but for all the people that from different countries were like, oh yeah, we don't throw that out for 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks or whatever. So it's still good. We'll sell it for you half price. Like it was like, I was like, so that's how that guy made millions of dollars. He sold old groceries, but it worked. And then he started his Ponzi scheme. But I was at that guy's house and I was like, this is crazy. And then like when I saw, there was like a documentary on him and they showed inside of his house, I was like, no way. Cause I was like, it had to be that guy because Miami's only got about 8 fans. And it's like, when this guy's got all this memorabilia, there's all these former players. I was like, that has to be the guy. And I met him, and he's like a little dweeb, little dweeb dork, thinks he's sweet. And I'm like, this guy's a douchebag, but he's got a nice house. But I'll drink his stuff and eat his Nobu sushi because that shit was great, and I didn't have to pay for it, which made it even greater.
Miami only got 10 fans, and Ed Reed gonna show up on your front lawn with like 25,000 deep, man, ready to take you out.
Good. I would love to meet Ed Reed. I wanted the Browns to draft Ed Reed. They took William Greene because they're morons. That's what Cleveland does. They're morons. Yeah. I wanted Ed Reed. I made a screen name. My screen name was "We Want Ed Reed." What's up?
He got like stabbed by his wife, right?
What's Boston College doing with
it's 3-3.
There you go, man. Resurrect the spirit of William Greene.
William Greene.
Halfley. There you go. There's another. Hey, he was defense coordinator for us, right?
Who? Oh, Halfley? Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Is it like raining or something that it's only 3-3? Or I just think Clemson stinks. I mean, that's like the.
Well, I think though, if they have a good game, I think they're going to jump Michigan if they blow them out. But if it's 3-3, definitely not happening.
Do you think
Michigan's score looks a lot better than how that game actually played out? The Michigan looked terrible for most of it.
Yeah,
I'm a little biased, but
TJ, is this your screen name on here? Are you in our chat right now? Because like, is this you? This guy's screen name is I Love Weed.
No.
Look at that. I got the Cowboys gear on. I like it.
Just tell him to bring a little bit of syrup and some butter. And
hey, you're cooking for him.
Bring some Nutella and some diabetes shots. You'll be good.
Yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, these night games, I love you point out the throw. I'm going to go through a quick little scoreboard. USC is actually losing to Washington State right now, so that's kind of interesting. So early in the game, it's still in the second quarter, 14-10. Clemson and Boston College 3-3, so just outright amazing game there. South Carolina, Kentucky 7-7 stinks. So I don't understand it. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. See, Notre Dame and BYU, two highly religious institutions, are playing in Vegas, which makes no sense. I think it's awesome. I think if I was a player and I had a bye week, I mean, I wonder if Notre Dame has a bye week after that, because I wouldn't come home. I'd be like, hey, they'd be like, where's Kirk? I was like, and
it's 18-6, which is not a normal score you see.
Yeah, it's like a scoregami score. Bama has scored. It is 7-0. Let's see who got on the board for those guys. No Bryce Young. So they got Jalen Monroe, touchdown to Cameron Latu. So tight end. They have 23 yards passing so far, and it's almost halftime. So roll tide roll. Well, they've got 12 minutes to go in the second, but yeah, it's a decent slate of games. I mean, I thought this preseason, I thought this A&M game was going to be the biggest game or one of the biggest games of the year, and then they just completely crapped the bed twice. They're 3-2 now. People want Jimbo. They want his head on a. They want his head on a stick at this point, just because they're projected to be a top 5-ish team, a playoff fringe team, and the App State loss was bad, and then they followed up with another loss, and so that's it'll be real interesting to see if any of these guys end up transferring out some of these young superstars they got. So, all right, we're gonna wrap this thing up. Final thoughts. I'm gonna start with UC. Undefeated team, top 3 in the nation, heading into the bye week. What is give me 2 good, 2 bad, and what does this team need to get better for before we see the Iowa Hawkeyes?
Okay, I would say we definitely need to get better on the back end with our corners. We'll get that situated. And then, with the injuries, we need to get healthy. So we need to tighten up on the back end of our defense, and we need to get the guys who are dinged up and banged up. We need to get those guys healthy. 2 positives. Hey, we're undefeated, and we need to just keep this thing going. I mean, we still have a lot of meat on the bone, moving forward with those 2 big games that we still have on the schedule. We can't lose focus and understand that our ultimate goal is to win the Big Ten and to win a national championship. So all that's intact. So let's just keep moving forward 1 game at a time.
Phil, you next.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with him for the 2 negatives. But yeah, injuries, got to get healthy. I would agree. Not the whole secondary, just the DBs. Good. It doesn't matter. It seems like we swap out receivers or running backs. Because the O-line is 1, the quarterback is 2, have been amazing. And then to answer your question from earlier, is this our best chance to win a national championship? I would say the 2019 team head-to-head, I would actually take them over this team. However, there's no LSU this year, so I think it is the best chance to win the national championship.
Got you, what, Big Waffle?
Shoot, I know what Ed Orgeron's doing if he's on a bye week. Sparkling up. Eddie O making some memories. No,
God.
One thing I wanted to run back to you, Phil, was, you mentioned you can maybe see back there if you want to mix around some different things here in his bye week. I mean, I think maybe I'll throw this one out here for C, since I think his boys up there at Hoban, they're on a collision course with the Massillon Tigers, man. I'm hoping in week 16, but I'd like to see Jaden Ballard back there returning some kicks, returning some punts, doing some more stuff. He's got wheels, he's got hands. If he's not necessarily going to fit into the fold as your top 5 wide receiver group when you go empty sets, then let him do something, man. See if this kid can make some plays. He's got the ability in him. He's gotten bigger. He's gotten faster. He's learning the system. So maybe kind of tweak with some things on the special team side of stuff here in this bye week. Don't do anything stupid. Don't fall asleep on the side of 315 after leaving the spot or something. Don't roll up into pure platinum with the platinum dollars, whatever it may be.
Oh, God.
Chill.
Slidell.
Lay low.
Slidell handing out those Monopoly dollars, the Monopoly money. The girl's like, I need to get paid. I got rent due. You can't be paying no Monopoly dollars. Oh, God. I'm kind of with you guys. I think that, the biggest thing is develop the depth going forward. In the back of your head, you got to start figuring out the depth chart for next year. I'm sure the coaches don't really care about that, but, some of these guys, you're going to have a lot of guys declare. You're going to have a really good squad potentially next year. And I think you got to get a really good hard eval on our 2 backup quarterbacks. I think Devin and Kyle McCord both need to get a lot of reps this week. And then the most important aspect of college football is, these guys got to hit the road. Some of them are probably going to go out on Wednesday. I imagine Thursday they'll have a skeleton crew kind of running practice. I'd send, Brian Hartland out. I would send Justin Fry out. I think that the benefit to having Kevin Wilson on the staff with Justin Fry is he can run the offensive line if need be. If Justin has to go out and see Samson Okunloa and some of these big time tackles that we're trying to bag, I would keep holding up a photo of this depth chart and say, look, our 2 tackles are going pro. We need a tackle. We need another tackle. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see where these guys end up headed for recruiting. And then these guys just need to kind of recharge and refresh and get their minds right for what's going to be a pretty big stretch run. Because I think our 2 biggest tests are at Happy Valley, which thank God is not at night. And then we got, Big Blue coming in November, which obviously we owe them in a major way. So, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys.
Watch out for them Terrapins.
They're terrible. Get out of here. Maryland. Are you kidding me? Jesus Christ. You try to up our viewers by lying to them. You can't. You're not going to add any more viewers by lying to them and say that Maryland's going to be good. We're going to beat the mess out of those guys. That's the thing is, like, they show up for good, honest opinions. It's like saying, oh, watch out for Maryland. It's like, we hang 70 on them.
You're one play away, man, from your quarterback going down. So, like you said, hey, if you're playing a team that, is showing that they can do something, you better make sure, like you said, run through them backup quarterbacks. Could be next man up. But if you ain't ready, I mean, listen, I never want to put that jinx on anybody, but we've all been around enough football long enough to know that you could be one injury away from your squad looking completely different. I don't care how many great receivers you got. If you can't get them the ball, you just have to always make sure that people stay healthy. This is a game of injuries, man. It happens every week. Every week. Guys got to be ready to step up.
That's right.
Yeah, Maryland lost to Purdue. Michigan was a 7-point game. Yeah, I mean, it could be decent. They haven't announced the time. Be interesting if that's a 3:30 game. It's in November, so they don't usually do night games, but that'll be an interesting one.
You're already getting nervous, man. Damn.
I will never be nervous about Maryland. Like Ryan Day scores 70 points like he brushes his teeth against Maryland. I mean, he's doing onside kicks, and after Loxley narked on Chase Young and Chase gets suspended for those games. I mean, he was onside kicking up like 60 and like just throwing it deep, and I mean, he was in the words of Denzel in Training Day, he's taxing that ass. So, that happens every time you see Maryland on the schedule. It's like, yeah, Ryan's he does not like those guys. I mean, really, it's, Iowa, they stink. And then we got Penn State is, they're 10th. It'll be there. It'll probably be, imagine the big noon kickoff. So, I think that's a big benefit to us. Northwestern this is the worst Northwestern team I've ever seen. Indiana held on to Michigan for a minute and then they got smoked. And then you got Maryland, Michigan. So, I mean, I think when you look at it being at Maryland, I don't love having that road game before Michigan, but I don't think it's going to matter. I still think we're going to be able to hopefully get our DBs tuned up because Baby Tua can throw the ball. But still, it's they're going to get smoked. It's just it's almost like the annual tradition when Ryan Day plays against Maryland. They're going to get the business. I mean, hell, they lost to Purdue today, for God's sake. So they're not that good. We beat Purdue by 700 points last year. That was crazy. So, all right, fellas. Well, I'm going to wrap this. I appreciate you guys. Let's go watch this amazing Alabama A&M game that's like 7-0 because it just means more down there, but it apparently doesn't mean more points. It means more bullshit. So I'm going to wrap this, fellas. You guys have a great night. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to jump on the message boards. See you guys soon.
Thanks, guys.
And go Bucks. See ya.